The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Justice requires us to remember when any citizen denies his fellow, saying his color is not mine, or his beliefs are strange and different. In that moment, he betrays America.
Be nice and patient and continue to pray. In 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out.
I believe that truth is the glue that holds government together. Not only our government, but civilization itself.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened.
America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in high moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the face of the world.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Through much of the last century, America's faith in freedom and democracy was a rock in a raging sea.
Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America.
Well, good afternoon. This is going to be quite a lot of information coming out all at one time. There's quite a few cases involving ex-President Donald J. Trump, and it's not a popular subject. It's a painful subject for me as an American because, well, this is unprecedented. I have never heard or in reviewing anything to do in a climate like this. So many law cases, so many legal cases, both civil and, I remind you, criminal, against anyone to do with politics. There's always the risk, of course, when it involves public officials, especially one with the PR savvy, I would say, or the ability to wield a microphone and say whatever he wants to turn a story. In a political climate like this, the risk of bringing all of these charges and bringing all of these cases forward is that people will actually, and they are, believe me, the most common thing I hear is, you just handed President Trump the election. It's obviously a political ploy to keep him from running. But the reason that I decided, very unpopular with all my friends, with everyone that I talk to about my channel, and with everyone in my family, my friends, and just about everybody I mentioned is, it's not a good idea to do these kind of streams because it's not going to be very popular. People really don't want to get into it. They don't want to talk about it. But I do, because there's one thing that we're all forgetting. And it's not that we're forgetting it. It's just that nobody wants to hammer in the point. And the point is that no one is above the law. And I can't believe that there would be 34 charges, all of these cases, just politically. We have got an election interference case in 2 different forums, in the state of Georgia and in federal court with Jack Smith, who was our special prosecutor, who they said it was necessary to look into all of this, and who did and found enough evidence to come forward with an indictment in a grand jury. You see, people are forgetting the process. If it was political, then it could just be done like by the Democrats. They could just say, hey, let's just do this. But I need to remind you that most of those coming forward with charges have been nominated for their positions during Republican reign. That some of them are even brought forward by those that actually asked for the special prosecutor on through the Republican Party. It was not exactly a one-sided kind of thing. Right? That election, there is not every Republican believes that election wasn't valid. Matter of fact, it was a small amount that did. Right? We also have the documents case in Florida. Um, we have the storing of multiple documents that were requested back multiple times for over a year and a half. We have a fraudulent letter that everything was returned. We have actually the moving of those documents after the search at Mar-a-Lago for them. We have additional movement of documents purposely trying to keep them. We have non-cooperation. I just want to remind those that are saying we're handing this man the election that he's orchestrated this in some way. It's his words, it's his deeds. He's using it. And as an example, I will take today's court proceedings in New York. For those of you not familiar, like if you have your head in the sand, don't look at the news or haven't turned on YouTube or the radio or the television today. Donald Trump, since Monday, has been attending his own civil trial in New York, where Letitia James has actually been suing him for $250 million in what she calls a massive conspiracy to commit fraud against the state by all of his businesses, naming himself and his children and many of the heads of Trump Organization and affiliates of Trump Organization, including the trust, for misrepresenting their values, underreporting the values of their businesses and their properties to avoid tax, while overinflating their businesses and their properties to gain the Forbes list and great loans. That's making it sound very simple. That's the best way I can put it. Well, either way, it's illegal. You don't get to lower everything so you pay less tax and the very next day put out a statement that says something's worth $18 billion. Both of these things, although two things can be true at the same time, those two things can't. It can't be worth, only a couple of million here and quite 200 times percent more on another piece of paper. Okay. Good accounting in business is what the foundation, a good solid business form is all about. And the state of New York says that Donald Trump has routinely violated good business practices to his own favor and to hoodwink the state. They had so much evidence that when presented to Judge Ergan, who is the judge in this case, Judge Arthur Ergan, okay, he said that there was really an easy judgment here. He went for summary judgment, limited summary judgment, only in the part that says that, yep, those business practices definitely defrauded the state. Look at all these statements. Look at all this evidence. This was routine. They did it all the time. It is slam dunk. That's it. You proved it. And I don't need to hear anything more about it. This is done. But we'll go to trial on the other things to find out like how much he's going to owe and who is exactly going to be responsible. But the judge has already ordered that the licenses for the businesses of the Trump Organization are revoked. No business in New York. And that, to restitute the state, they should dissolve. Now, there is already someone in charge of that. They gave them a certain amount of days to actually come forward with 3 people that they trusted, mutual trust on both sides, to look over the process. But of course, everything gets stayed because, as they should, they have appealed, because it is just a judge saying this, and they need to make sure that it should go through this way. This is astronomical. I don't know why more people aren't really keying in on this part. What this would actually do to the Trump organization is actually make not a Trump organization anymore. In New York, Donald Trump decided to attend these proceedings when the court started. And the first thing he did was complain that he didn't have a jury. He is out here posting that his rights are violated, that he doesn't have a jury. But perhaps he forgets that the jury needs to be, a jury trial is an option when filing and answering your suit. And neither party asked for a jury, not the state, nor Donald Trump's attorneys or anyone involved. Nobody clicked the box. So no jury was there. No rights were violated. Perhaps his attorneys got the message wrong from him, or did some sloppy work. I don't know. Or it was all a ruse for more PR. And the reason I say that is every day since Monday when he arrived, Donald Trump has taken to, oh, I might as well just put up the curmudgeon. Here we go. Oh, I got the wrong one. There we go. Donald Trump has had that puss on while inside the courtroom the whole time. And I don't blame him for looking a little sour. I really don't. I would be. This is horrible as far as pressure. And it's just, he never thought it would get this far, but it did. Well, he takes a mic at every break, and he goes out there and he talks about the judge, and he talks about Letitia James, and he slams them, and he says that they're all just Democratic puppets, as if they haven't been doing their job all along. I mean, Letitia James is not new to this, okay? And neither is Judge Arthur Aragon. Like, he'd been there for a while, okay? And he's a judge. And yes, they do get appointed this way or that way by Republicans or Democrats, but your affiliation doesn't really have anything to do with how you do your job most of the time. It's not like that house running right now, the House and the Senate, where everything gets to be partisan and you got to do everything that way. It ain't like that. I mean, law is different, okay? Law is a bit different. And actually, most of those who make it a career actually believe in it. And that's the problem, is that the law can't be persuaded by a microphone or a pretty speech. Everything's being twisted. He's out here saying he didn't get a jury because they're prejudiced against them. They're out there saying that, well, they just don't want me to run. He can still run. We all know this. Those of us that have actually looked into it or cared to listen past the words of a charlatan and, in the snake oil salesman. Listen, he has the option to run, even with all this going on. No one's taking that away from him. As a matter of fact, they came forward anyway, knowing that this is just going to push him into the public eye more, give him more to complain about to what he calls the average citizen. Okay, the average citizen doesn't bulk the state out of millions of dollars on a regular basis. The average citizen doesn't take documents that are high security and store them in a public bathroom in a resort, or transfer them on a plane to other storage units, or get lawyers to say nothing to see here and ruin their careers by signing documents. Okay. The average citizen doesn't actually have what Donald Trump does. Right? So this I relate to the average man routine is so full of holes. So full of holes. And I don't want this to turn into like me just against Donald Trump running. I want him to run. If he wants to run, I want him to run. My point is that these proceedings aren't going to prevent that. And he hasn't been nominated as the candidate. Y'all realize that. The only one who has nominated him as the candidate is himself. You know. Oh, may I remind you that the Tiger King could run also? And he says it all the time. And he's in jail. Anyone can run. This isn't going to stop him from running. And it damn well isn't going to stop him from winning. I mean, he gets more exposure. My point being, look past this damn dance he's doing outside the courtroom. He didn't show up for justice. He didn't show up to testify. And he damn well didn't show up to bring any evidence because they haven't. Okay. He showed up for the show. He showed up for the microphone. He showed up for the press. He showed up so that he could actually put out tweets against the judge and the judge's clerk. Because on the very next day, while he's sitting there in court during his lunch on Truth Social, he actually attacked the court clerk and said that she was somehow affiliated with Schumer, who just is a Democrat. And oh my God, they know each other. What? It's obviously a conspiracy because, there's Democrats that know each other here in the court. It's a sham. It's laughable. And those that latch on to these little things and make them bigger, like law and order doesn't exist. Well, I'd say you're the ones making it political. You're the ones setting the stage. Law itself just wants to carry on. Okay? Law itself does. But the result of that little stunt, to, I'm afraid, Donald's dismay, was that Judge Aragon put a gag order on him. He's not allowed to speak about the judge's staff at all. He put them at risk. He put her whereabouts and her social accounts out there. He knew what would happen. Can we just call it what it is? Donald Trump is a social media bully. He's the one making it political. He's the one putting witnesses at risk, putting everyone involved with everything at risk. He's the one making it political, making it about the presidential race. Nobody else. He is. So ask yourself why. That's the only way he's going to win, right? He should be happy then. He's getting all this free press. Well, that's the face of a man who's losing. That look there, that's not determined. That's not I'm going to win. That's I just lost all my business licenses in New York. That's the fact that Letitia James doesn't give a shit that I'm putting pressure on her, threatening her life, getting mobs after her. Do you know there's court cases going on right now about threats to her, like actual physical threats to her and her family, and that people are on trial for it? You see, the law doesn't care that Donald Trump is running for president. The law cares what he's doing about it, how he's doing it. That should be what we're looking at. I am embarrassed for us that it could look that this is the normal way to do things, because it's not. It's definitely not. We've never been here before. The law itself is trying to find its way around it. And the fact that they waited, of course, until he's out of office to actually bring any charges forward is obeying the law. Okay, but he ain't president yet. And he's just running. He's got a right to. He can even run from jail. And if he keeps talking, he may end up there. If he keeps talking against these gag orders, he may be there, because this isn't his only case. No, it's not. It's not his only case. It's getting crazy. It really is. I'll tell you. I'm going to bring up, okay, he's not happy the whole time. He's got, and I feel bad for John Luria. Look at how they made him sit in the back. I just wanted to bring this up. These are going to be his New York lawyers here. You might recognize Alina Hobbs. She's been his PR mouthpiece for a while now. She's there. She didn't really say much. Everything's going to be done by this gentleman over here, Keynes. But John Loria, who also has been taking the mic a lot on the press route, designated to the back there, is there. All right. It's a well-packed courtroom. Donald Jr. is there also, and Eric is there too. They are both been charged. The original lawsuit also included Ivanka. And Ivanka, based on statute of limitations for when the offenses that she signed, and these are business transactions, either loan applications and or payments or something in regards to regulation in New York that did a false leading to evaluation. Most of the charges are about the evaluation of properties and businesses and the misleading it from one institute, meaning like if I was going to be taxed, and including not just for the state of New York, but on federal tax returns also. So be prepared for the other shoe to drop, because if the state wins this in regards to him owing a lot of money in back taxes or it being fraud, you would bet that the IRS would say that they've got money coming to them also. If he undervalued businesses and profits, they would be looking at some things. False reporting is serious. Right? Now, we all know that everybody looks for loopholes in tax law and stuff like that, but that's not what we're saying here. Letitia James has actually put together a case that proves consistent years and years and audit of business practices that broke the law. Consistent conspiracy to commit fraud in reporting. That's what she proved. And right now they're going over all the statements and they're boring the judge. He's actually told both sides, there's no jury here. I get it. If the answer is going to be the same, do we really have to go over all of this over and over and over? Like he's rolling his eyes a bit right now. He's trying to speed things up. Okay. But he gets to call it. There's no jury. So anyway, they're not happy, as you can see. And Letitia James, today, actually after lunch, because Trump decided after lunch today, now he's got a gag order. He keeps saying the same thing, but now he can't actually bash the staff or talk about, the proceeding like that out there. So he left because, the PR opportunity is much less now. So he left, and then Letitia James actually came forward to address some of the things that he had said in regards to, all of the claims. He's saying that he doesn't have a jury, and she wants to remind everybody why. Okay. There's going to be no fast answers about, like, this came from the judge, not Letitia James, but that there's going to be actually no fast answers about the fate of the Trump organization and over a dozen of his New York properties, because, it's first of all, his ruling is now is being appealed. Okay. And he dealt that blow, a week before this trial even began. Okay. But it's just not going to be decided right away. All of those licenses to operate those properties are revoked. And that there's even broader swath of family businesses that Trump built in the left, has not just the Trump organization that we all look at in New York, but many of them. And it left almost all of his New York operations hanging in the balance, not able to do anything until the appeal goes through, or they get the receivership in there to start actually dismantling them and to pay the fine, and the fine that they're looking at, is $250 million. Okay. I mean, in this case alone, he's already been ordered to pay like I think $140,000 in failure to disclose discovery stuff in time. They have been fines, but to his lawyers already issued several times. All right. Um, but Trump is pushing really hard on Justice Erdogan. He actually called him a fraud. Um, he is actually saying that he should be charged criminally for actually persecuting him. That Letitia James is just a villain out that she ran knowing that she was going to go against him. And yes, that was part of her campaign, is that businesses that think that they can operate outside the law should not be allowed in New York. And yes, she did. And she was focused on some of the misdeeds that were done. And as someone who lives on the East Coast, this isn't anything new. This has been ongoing with Trump for quite some time. We're talking about a man who has thousands and thousands and thousands of lawsuits against him for his business practices, for shady dealings, for not paying bills. Uh, he turned the profit of like not doing something into like good business practice. Just ignore it. It's going to go away. Okay. Trump's lawyers are pushing uh, to Justice Erdogan exactly what these ruling that he did actually means. Like, how is that going to be? You know, but actually, all he's done in the meantime is says, I don't have to explain that to you. Your lawyer, after huddling with his all clerk, he did agree that he would, because Trump's team was acting concerned that they were not prepared. He actually gave them more time to nominate an independent authority who could implement the judge's orders of maintaining what the status of all of those businesses are and how those properties would be used to rectify the settlement. Okay, Mr. Kais, who is Trump's lawyer, did speak with Judge Aragon in regards to suggesting that he was inclined to nominate a monitor who is already being overseeing Mr. Trump's business, and that would be Barbara Jones. And that was nominated early on, but in another proceeding, So it is moving forward, if the judge's decision stands in this case and it doesn't get appealed, it doesn't get overturned during appeal. The strictest possible reading of what Justice Aragon's ruling had already said before they're even going into the day-to-day trial would mean the end of the Trump organization together and being forced to sell off a lot of their properties and then basically imposing a death sentence to any business transactions or operations happening in New York at all. More than likely, there would actually be a period of time that he won't be able to operate his properties. They would hand it over to a court, like some court-appointed executive, potentially because in receivership, Miss Jones is already overseeing some stuff. An arrangement would be to preserve the ownership of everything, but then again, actually preventing his two adult sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, from running any of the empire without permission from the court, not being able to have CEO seats, CFO seats, or any kind of command seat at the time. During the proceedings this week, it was learned that today in particular, when Donald Jr. was in his deposition, little clips are being played and talking about his knowledge of accounting. He basically left. And so did the rest of anybody watching it, because he just took the whole proceeding like a joke. And I hope that they do play these whole depositions and you will see that they are just taking the whole thing as a mockery or not as seriously. And to me, that's a little bit concerning. I mean, you don't have to think that you're guilty. I don't want them going in there thinking, oh gosh, they got me, I'm totally guilty. Of course that they should be bringing their best case forward. and to prove that it's not true. But basically, in Donald Trump's own little grandstanding speeches in the last couple of days, he actually proved what Letitia James said was true. He went out there and said, the judge has been given wrong information. He says Mar-a-Lago is only like $18 million. And I'm here to tell you it's 100% more than that. It's like more like 200 million, 300 million, 400 million, whatever the number was. He actually went out there and said, that's the value. Just because I list this on the paper, the real value is that. He actually said it's not listed properly in all of the forms that they filed formally with all the taxing authorities. And he admitted they have actually fought the assessment of Mar-a-Lago, saying it was too high. And they went to court and they fought it to bring it down so he could pay less tax. But then when they reported to others who are valuing the property for loans and business affiliations, it was often 200 to 1,000 times more. We're not talking a little difference here. We're not talking the swing of 10% or 20%. That there are real estate experts that will say that a 10% swing is normal. Okay, and that could be brought up in court. But 200% to 1,000%? Come on, don't you think that's taking it a little bit much? Okay, a little bit much. Anyway, there is a law on the books in New York where he chose to run his business for most of his life. Almost all of his business says we're run out of there. Okay, he's been an East Coaster for all this time. He's only recently moved some things to Florida, bought Mar-a-Lago and things like that, very profitably, and they can't be touched. But he is using those property to cause less tax in multiple places. They are at risk because that's state law, which apparently they forgot about. It's definitely solid in New York, and you cannot inflate your net worth by billions of dollars to secure favorable loans from banks, because that is considered fraud in the state of New York. But Trump's lawyers say it can't be fraud if the bank made money. And he made all the payments. So it's not fraud. And yet that law allows the attorney to pursue persistent fraud without having to show that a defendant actually intended to defraud anyone. The law is written. They didn't have to lose any money for it to be fraud. It's a lower bar than most fraud cases have to have in other states. And it also provides for more drastic remedies. It's well crafted to protect the state, that law. And I think they should have looked into it a little bit more. This Attorney General's office has actually used the same statute to bring down another part of Trump's for-profit education venture, Trump University. They lost that case under the same circumstances. Not as huge for the fines, the penalties, or the money that they're looking for recouping as losses to the state. But Trump University is no more. They lost that case quickly. This is a solid case, and everybody's laughing at it because it's a civil case and it shouldn't be wasted. Well, can you imagine? Can you imagine if it was criminal? Now, for it to be a criminal, people are saying, why is it a civil case instead of a criminal case? And basically, the simple explanation is the way the law is written, they don't need to prove that the financial loss. Okay. Usually in a fraud case, most of the time is spent proving that the action resulted in financial loss and damage to the other party. The way it's written in the state of New York, that doesn't need to happen for this particular law that she's using. And that's why it's civil, because criminally, you would need the defraud. Civil, you don't. You don't need the losses of others to pursue it under this law. You just need to prove the consistent conspiracy to do it, which they did, which is why the judge went forward and said that part is already over. Summary judgment. Yep, they did it. Basically, when you look at the law that it's written for court to conclude that the corporate citizen or the business person has consistently behaved in a manner that forfeit the privilege of operating in the New York as wanted as a business standard business practice in safely for New York citizens to contribute and be a part of. They're saying he went out of his way to commit a conspiracy to actually commit fraud, that this was standard operating procedure there, that they did it consistently. And apparently all of the financial documents back it up. Of course, the appeal will still go on. Like I said, this is Letitia James. She has been harassed. She is holding her own. She was in court the last couple of days too. And basically she says there's just no doubt that they did this. It's just how much they're going to have to pay and what the judge decides would be the proper restitution to the state for this. And he's already given summary judgment, but like I said, it's in appeal. And she's writing her summations for the appeal too and pushing. We'll see what happens. But basically, the trial still went through. A stay was lifted. Part of the appeal to actually stop the whole thing and have it it should be said, like clearly and loudly, that they already tried to stop this case multiple times, and it went up to appeal, and it got pushed back down that yes, the trial would go forward. So although they didn't weigh in on Judge Ergnon's actual summary judgment, they did say, sorry, not sorry, we're not stopping the civil case from going forward. There's not enough there to stop it, which kind of leans a little bit. I can understand why they didn't weigh in on what he did yet, because I guess they want to see the rest of the trial and the rest of the evidence that plays out. But because they don't think it was that egregious, the trial went forward. I mean, that's a clear indication to me, just as a layperson, and I'm not a lawyer, but if it goes up to the appeal, and to stop the trial and to say, can you believe what this judge just did? Like, you can't let this happen to me. You can't have this going forward. And they go, yeah, we see. Trial's still happening Monday, boo. See you there. That kind of gives a little bit of light on what's going on as far as the appeal process up there. I'm sure they're just looking for their precedent and everything and that's going to be the hard part. Finding precedent to back things up is the hard part in an unprecedented case. Like, this stuff is crazy, okay? But, I mean, I'm sure they could look at some of the RICO cases and things and be able to find a way to actually pull this off forward. Okay. Well, not to say we have tons and tons of cases on this guy, but we're going to get, oops, I didn't want to go to him yet. Okay, let me just put me up there now. That's another one we're going to have to deal with in a minute, but I want to just check the chat real quickly. I don't want to bore you to death with all of this too much today. I just wanted to get some of the facts out here. Hey, Quiz, Charlie, Robsky, good to see you. Look at the trees. It's really good to see you too. Karen, nice of you to be here. I'm glad. Turtle Moves, it's nice to see you guys. John Adventures, it's good to see you too. Let's just see if we've got some questions. Turtle Moves says, he looks like mommy took his coloring books. Yes, he's been pouting, but I can understand why. This is all about big money, and he just lost a lot. Robsky says, I can't wait for him to run straight into a prison cell. He could run from prison. I mean, he could actually run the country from a prison cell, like, if he wanted. He can run, but not very far. This is true. It seems to be multiple cases going on. I don't think he's got a long way to go. Don't forget, we got federal cases against him too. Jack Smith is not playing, and Judge Chutkin has to also revoke. He's been threatening every judge, every prosecutor in these cases, in actually doing witness intimidation against anyone who's testifying. Anyone, okay, and that's really not right. And I want to say that before I was telling you that Ivanka was released based on statute of limitations from her deeds, but the one part I forgot to mention loudly is Ivanka Trump is on the defendant's list of witnesses. She did give a deposition, and since she's not going forward with charges, that could be interesting. But it's also a little dangerous because this is a civil suit, and federally they have not weighed in yet on what they're owed. Ivanka could still be charged because there is no statute of limitations for the IRS. Y'all know that, right? Federal government has different way of looking at things. So she would still be at risk with their testimony. So it's going to be between, the DA, Alvin Braggs, whether he tells Ivanka, well, we're not going to look at you, so you can testify here freely. I'm very curious to see that deposition, because it was noted that while Letitia James, in her opening statements, played clips from most of the depositions of everyone involved, she didn't play one from Ivanka Trump, although we know she gave one. So I don't know if she's taking the stand or not, but I'm going to be watching really carefully to see what happens. But it's a witch hunt targeting a single person and not seeking at all to find and persecute anyone else. Yes, that's why in most of the cases, like especially the election fraud case, there happened to be 19 co-defendants. But hey, who are we to point that out, Aaron, right? And, it's a witch hunt, because it's not just him there running for president, but both his children right there. His head accountant for almost all of his business, Weissman, who's actually... Need I remind you that has already been tried, and that man already pled out and gave testimony and said that the standard business practices were illegal, okay, and that they had committed like some of this, like that's a done deal from the other trial. At least we not forget. But you see, mainstream media, they forget all of that. They forget the history that led us here. And that the chief witness, Alan Weissman, who actually helped with most of these. Like right now, they've got Bender on the trial, who is also an ex-accountant of Donald Trump, and they're ripping them up. This is what the defense wants to focus on. Were you the head accountant? Are you the lead partner in your firm? Are you the head honcho? Anybody in the chat want to tell me why that's pertinent when you're committing like fraud? Is that a defense? Actually, he's already lost his case. The only thing up for discussion now is just how much he's going to lose. Exactly. The judge has already ordered that he's stripped of his license, but it's an appeal. But the appeal didn't stop the rest of the trial, which is, it's amusing. I don't know why they're not focusing on that. Why they're like think that it's all going to get ripped away, because it's not. If any of his charges end up being sedition related at all, they may revoke his right to run. Even the mainline Republicans are so worried about him spiffing the boat that they may side with the left. This is true, and I just need to remind you, he has to be confirmed as guilty of that. They can't just charge him with it, which they have. They actually have said he interfered with elections. Okay, he interfered with due process. He is actually implemented January 6th. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, there's federal cases now in Judge Chutkin's court that are going to go forward in the beginning of 2024, or if not sooner. If he keeps running his mouth, I wouldn't be surprised if Judge Chutkin moves it up quite considerably. That is what Jack Smith wants. He wants protection for his witnesses. He wants protection for everyone involved, including the judge. And he is petitioning for stronger protections and gag order against Trump and his affiliates. Okay. Yep, Quiz. That's exactly it. He's out there complaining he doesn't have a jury, and it's his team that asked for no jury, just a judge. Yep. I guess they thought that they could intimidate the judge. I don't know. I mean, that's just my speculation on my part. I don't know why they didn't want a jury, but they didn't. You can't come out here and cry you don't have a jury when you didn't ask for one. Maybe Donald J. Trump should listen to his lawyers, but I digress. When does he listen to his lawyers? He hasn't all along. He's been getting new lawyers and new lawyers. Oh, most of his lawyers are up on charges at this point in some way, or sanctioned, or just not. Like, it's insane. He's gonna run out of lawyers in New York, in this whole country of ours that's full of lawyers. He's gonna run out of them. It's not their fault that 8 years of college didn't teach them to double check their paperwork. This is true. Like, that's some good quality lawyering you got going on. And he has multiple lawyers. Like, I don't know how this happens. I really don't. So he complains that he doesn't have a jury when he asked for judge. Yup. Hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Hey, Peter. Peter Collins. Nice that you could catch it live. I'm glad. It's nice to see you here. You guys are having some good time in the chat with this. It's like, thank you, Robski. Hit that like button and share, you heathens. Like, yup, get your fingers down there. He's right. Like, do a bear service. The lawyers didn't want a jury trial. They knew the people would be even more harsh than a judge. And I do believe that Quiz has a point here. Hi, Inquisitor. That's a valid point. I agree 100% with that, because I think if you let the people decide, they could not relate to this, and they would feel it would be much harsher. Actually, they're banking on the fact that the judge is going to be more reasonable. However, they are in the process right now pissing that judge off immaculately. They are trying to bore him to death, and he's not having it. Like, it's not good. It's not good. Have a good one, Aaron. Thank you for being here when you could. I appreciate it. All right. Hey, Wrecker. Your phone's not letting you type in chat. Well, thank you for the strawberries and the autos anyway. You know. Yep, he's been doing all of this for years, Anna. If on the East Coast, I'll tell you, it's insane. There's so many lawsuits. I think at one point they counted 3,380. Right? Hey, Liam. If they'd had a bad time with the jury, he would be whining about that, and he would have done better with just a judge. Exactly. You know, you know, he definitely. Oh, and thank you for the reminder. Let me just put that up. I can't believe that I still did. I can't remember this banner no matter what. I'm going to have to try to automate this thing. All right. So, what do you say, people? I did get some questions, and I don't want to be here for a long time, but people were asking in my DMs and in some of my other chats about the Speaker of the House. Okay. And I know I'm chuckling, but I'm chuckling because of how crazy he is. I just can't. All right. So, basically, the take on the Speaker of the House, everybody, if you anything to do with the news lately, you know that Matt Gaetz put to the floor a legal motion to vacate the office. It just takes one person to call a vote. Okay. And it could be anybody. All right. And that's the procedure right now. They're all realizing it doesn't work for them, and they are demanding that whoever the new speaker is, the first thing that he addresses is that this goes away, because nobody wants to be the Speaker of the House with that actually weighing over their head. That is this easy. Okay. But basically, Matt Gaetz, and if you do politics, you will know that Kevin McCarthy and Matt Gaetz, well, they're not friends. Let's just say it that way. Nope. they're not friends. Okay. They've had some dealings in the past and they don't really get along that well. But anyway, Matt Gaetz decided that he was going to vacate the House Speaker's position, call to a vote. He's not happy with how he's doing it. If you'll remember, McCarthy just worked with the Biden administration to put a temporary hold on shutting down the government and worked on a bill that would at least extend it through for a few more weeks, giving some time to everybody to negotiate and come to a better deal and a better budget, so that it could go through. Okay, Kevin McCarthy was also supporting Ukraine, which upset some of his party, not all, but it is growing the number of Republicans that are against the funding in Ukraine. All of these were used against him recently. And, well, long story short, Kevin McCarthy was ousted in a 216 to 210 vote, with 8 Republicans voting with the Democrats to make that happen. Now, the Democrats decided not to save him, although, this is at least the animal they knew they could have. They could have voted no and just it wouldn't have happened. But they decided to just go with what the Republican Party was putting forward because, like, it's not a good thing to have everybody at each other's throats. Okay. And the question that was being put to me, is that what happens now? Well, Patrick McHenry is stepping up temporarily, as is with his position in the House, his job. And he took the helm and he closed the House until next week immediately. He just called to order that, Kevin McCarthy is out and we need a new speaker. And he gave the Republican Party a week to put that forward on what they would do, and said that we will close the House for business until Tuesday, when those that wishing to do a speech or, put their case forward to why they should be Speaker of the House. We'll do all of that on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday of next week, we will have a vote. We will have a vote on it. Now, there's been lots of squabble back and forth about who it should be, who it should be. And before I went to bed yesterday, they were saying that it would not be Stephen Scalise because he was too sick. But Stephen Scalise, okay, he has he's the House Majority Leader, okay, the number 2 House Republican out of Louisiana, okay, and he actually sent a letter to the House saying that yes, he'd be going for the position, and he actually put in that letter that he has a solid background in a solid history of bringing both sides together, and that is kind of true. He did work with both sides on several other issues before. He's been there a long time. He does have somewhat of a relationship with some people in the Democratic Party also. He knows how the machine works. He's been there for quite some time, and he feels well enough that he's actually wants to take it on, as is his right. So he threw his hat in the ring. Okay. And as the number 2 House Republican, everyone was thinking, well, that would be an automatic. But we have to remember that there is another faction within the Republican Party that isn't really so with working with everyone as they are in the butting heads department, leaning more that way. So besides Stephen Scalise, we have, of course, Jim Jordan. Okay, founder of the House Freedom Caucus, more conservative, much, much more conservative, and the little darling to the Conservative Party, a, a fan of Trump, a believer in all things Trump. Jim Jordan out of Ohio. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Okay. Although, he studied a little bit of law. He never graduated. I think he took a class or two. He's not a practicing lawyer, but he likes to say that other people who actually have degrees and are sitting in judgeships, they do it wrong. Okay. A little judgmental for someone who doesn't practice, but, I get it. He knows a little. He knows a little. So anyway, he's thrown his hat into the ring, and he has some support from the more conservative part of the Republican Party. okay, on the rebel raisers, so to speak. Um, at this point, I'd like to mention that Marjorie Taylor Greene has put forth a scathing acclamation of to why President Trump should be Speaker of the House. Because why not? He does everything so great. It got left off Twitter. It's a meme now. Um, I don't know. I don't even know if he can. I have to say that there's been several articles that say that legally there are some ways that he could and what would happen and blah blah blah. But really, isn't he a bit busy with all these lawsuits? I mean, if he's gonna be showing up to court to do his public relations bit with that microphone, I mean, how's he gonna be Speaker of the House? Oh, but Speaker of the House, I mean, it does come with a microphone, so there is always that chance that he'll want to do it. Let's just say. All right. And the last one that I read about was Kevin Hearn. Now, Kevin Hearn is a representative out of Oklahoma. Okay. And well, he threw his hat in too. Okay. But he didn't say it personally. It was actually his representatives that spoke for him in Texas during a rally and said that Kevin Hearn would be running. Now, I don't know how much that is true, but I guess we'll find out on Tuesday for all of those who come forward and speak to the House about why they would be the best person to do it. Okay. I can tell you that Jim Jordan said if it's him, he's going to stop funding to Ukraine. I don't know. Stephen Scalise hasn't spoke on Ukraine. Well, Stephen Scalise actually spoke on unifying the party within itself, the Republicans, working with all of them to get the best platform forward. He spoke reasonably and rationally, and he actually looks like he may get more of the vote. If there were 8 people that decided that Kevin McCarthy was not doing a good job and voted with the Republicans and just kind of went against their party, because even though there was a lot of infighting about Kevin McCarthy within the Republican Party, they are known to just stick together and you just don't touch each other. You know, they're going to vote one way or the other. And to have these 8 come forward and say, nope, I don't agree. I'm tired of this. I'm just tired of it. It does lead to a little bit of independence that's going on in the Republicans. So someone like Stephen Scalise might be a good option. I mean, he knows the Republican platform. He knows all the players. And if he can get everybody to unite again, I mean, it might be a good thing for the Republican Party to have a speaker that is unifying instead of segregating. I have to remind you that, McCarthy was in because they had to vote. Like, what was it, 5, 6, 7 times? I mean, they just weren't that into him. Let's be honest. That vote had to be repeated over and over again to get him in. I don't know why he wanted it when they didn't want him, but they fought for it. They got him in there. But the Republican Party as a whole was really not that into it, so to speak. Okay, it wasn't a slam dunk. It was kind of like last man standing. Okay, and that's the truth of it. I don't think Stephen Scalise would have that kind of problem. I think he's a little better liked. And I think that they could be unifying for their party. It seems a reasonable thing to do. And after saying that, I realize how ridiculous that sounds when we're talking about the current state of the Republican Party. However, it would be a step forward towards reasonableness, in my humble opinion, as a bear here, just talking political crap with y'all. But anyway, the temporary of the House was, as I said, Patrick McHenry, and there are memes going around in little gifs right now because he was a little bit miffed, and he took that gavel and he did the little diaper walk. It looked like a little bit of a fit at the close, like he's like, this is like, the whole attitude he had was, this is the most ridiculous, stupid thing that I have to go through this shit. I'm just gonna slam this little hammer and I'll see y'all next week, like that. Just had his little fit and walked out, closing the House down for the week while they all supposedly get their stuff together and decide who's coming forward. Okay. But anyway, he did pitch that little fit. He did close the house. Everybody will be talking about it next Tuesday, and we'll find out, on the vote on Wednesday who will be the new speaker. But we'll have one. So the short answer to those of you in my DMs that says what happens next, and I say nothing for a week, except for everybody going at each other why they would be the best one for the job. There is a temporary, but there'll be nothing coming to the floor for votes and otherwise because. So we have a week delay. We already did get the budget patched to go forward in a shutdown of the government of, of America has been delayed temporarily. And so none of that's going to go on until after the speaker is chosen with a vote on Wednesday. So we got a week delay, another week delay. All right. And go back to this one. So those were the players. I hope that answered some of the questions that have been in my DMs on that. And like I said, if you have other questions, I would definitely take them later. You can put them on the video, or you guys all know how to reach me. Hey, Gary Priestley from Sydney. Nice to see you. Yeah. Let's see if there's any questions. Hi, Mary Beth. It's nice to see you too. Okay. The group who voted McCarthy out will not be happy with anyone who supports Ukraine or will work with the Democrats. And this is probably true. There is a faction in the Republican Party that's growing very loud about it. But it is the majority. It's not the majority of the Republican Party. It's a smaller part, but they are getting louder and they are increasing their numbers slowly. Um, it was a record failure to vote in. Yes, it was on McCarthy. It was a bit embarrassing. It was definitely embarrassing. And one more from Liam right here. Also, I believe the first time this has happened to a speaker. Absolutely, Liam. Thank you for bringing that up. This is also why I wanted to come out and talk about this today, is that this has never happened before. We've never voted a speaker out. Now, people have nominated to vote. They have called for a vote to get rid of the speaker. That has happened repeatedly, but it has never been successful. It has never been successful. And this was successful and quickly. They called that vote and he was out. Yep, he was out. Because there can't be. According to the rules of the House of Reps, no action from the House can be entertained with the exception of electing a new speaker. Exactly. It's shut down. Nothing can be done. That's basically the result until Tuesday they will have people on the floor saying why they are coming forward as speaker and why you should vote for me. They'll do their presentations, their speeches, whatever. They'll bring their best foot forward, and then Wednesday there'll be a vote, and then we'll be open for business again. But until then, nothing. Are you, Gary? Oh, thanks. I appreciate it because it wasn't easy to do. This gives me a headache. Like, I don't know what. Like, I had to Tylenol up before I came out here. And I'm trying not to be my usual snarky self about it. I'm trying to be a little more serious to give real information. Oh, it's really, really hard. It's really hard. I have to admit. Must be the only time the squad and Matt Gaetz were on the same side exactly because he's quite the contrarian, isn't he? I'm glad you pointed that out, Gary. The fact that Gaetz actually brought it forward and people are going with it, and when they know that the feud between Gaetz and McCarthy is very well known, it's kind of like the hysterics versus reasonable. It's kind of like McCarthy's always saying, "Ah, come on now, like we're never going to get that through. Can we just be a little bit reasonable here?" And Gaetz is over there going, "No, bring it down, burn it to the ground. Oh my God, light it on fire," like whatever. Like that's the difference in their styles, like totally, but it's absolutely historic. What is happening in our country right now, every day, in regards to all of these cases with Donald Trump, which is where we started this episode. And all of that is unprecedented. And now we have in the Republican Party this unprecedented move of actually ousting their own speaker, because he's actually working, trying to get things done. He's compromising. Like, this is the state of America right now. Actually, being reasonable and compromising is a faux pas of some sort. in some circles. Hey, look at it for what it is, people. It's definitely. Hey, when you actually have your front runner as the biggest charlatan that I have ever met in my life, like, what do we expect this party to turn into? Okay, really. The snake oil, the snake oil salesman is what they're looking for. What can I say? If that's what they want, how is everybody else in the house supposed to act? Really? Hmm. It seems like some farce with the budget happens every year. You know, it does. It actually does. It's actually used now to get other things that they want that they couldn't get. The shutting down of the government is now what looms over every American's head. It's the way that both parties, and I'm going to call them both out for this because it's true. it, it's the way that they get done what they couldn't get done normally on the floor by vote or whatever. It is like the ace in the hole that they have to hold over everybody's head to try to pilferage and put everything in there that they couldn't get done in the regular manner, like peaching, you know, pitching the reasonable way to do something and putting it on the floor as a vote and actually getting it through all these individual items. But what they do is they pocket them, they put them down, they don't get enough. They don't want to do the work of actually convincing everybody why it's a good thing to vote their way. That's too much work. So what we'll do is if it fails, we'll just hold it over. And then when the budget stuff comes in, we'll just throw everything at them and we'll see what we get. And that's usually how most of that gets through. And at least it has been for the last 10 years or so. I tell you, it's been crazy. You're right, Turtle moves almost every year. Almost every year. It's nice to see McCarthy out. A lot of Republicans feel that way. I mean, McCarthy posted "Bring it on," and Gates responded, "I did." I know they do not like each other, and their Twitter fights are actually amusing. And they're posting fights. You messed up when your perceived enemies agree with you. Exactly. I don't see why any candidates which would be better for the House as a whole. Well, actually, I think I actually, if I have to lean towards one of them of the three I mentioned, I would lean more towards Steve Scalise, based on his history, and he has worked with people to get things done. Like he knows how to do it. Whether he will do it is a question, but he does know how. I do believe the Democrats did once complain loudly about a speaker and want to get rid of them, but it wasn't Pelosi. Although uh, she did have a little bit more pushback the last time she was in. But they all have something to disrecommend them. Yes, they do. But it'll be up to their own party, so it'll be like the majority. Oh, I don't believe they tried to shut down the government. Oh, that's what it was, Gary. I thought you were talking about the speaker position, but about shutting down the government, yeah, maybe not while Trump was in, but in other times, yes. There have been stalemates throughout history. It's not unprecedented. It's actually more like the way it was done. It, let me just see. The ex- yeah, Liam, you're right. There are quite a few extremists in the Republican Party that will not want Scalise in there based on his history of working with others, or based on his long term being there, and based on the fact that he's more of like he wants actually things to move forward for the agenda and would actually be willing to a compromise to get some things done. He knows the game, the political game, to move things forward, whereas the extremists are more in stopping everything. Like they don't care. It's my way or the highway. They will like roadblock it all. Okay, they're just trying to roadblock the whole thing. Okay. And so I agree. They will try to block him, but so far I don't think just that faction of the Republican Party has enough votes. All right. I think on that we've covered just about all of it. I'd like to thank you guys for being here earlier on a day and having some chat going on. That was encouraging. It was nice to see some faces I haven't seen in a while. It's harder for me to do these earlier, but I will try at least once a week, if not every other, to try to do something earlier for you all. But on that, I would just say thank you very much. Don't forget to like and share. And do any comments or questions that you have. I do like to entertain those on the back of the videos. So yeah, just do a very favor and hit me up over there. And if you have questions on what's going on, I'd like to bring it forward with other episodes for you or other streams and address them. Because we all get very confused about all this kind of stuff. And I'm not an expert, well, just a layperson. And sometimes you just look at it with a layperson's eyes and you can help other people just explain it, Thank you, Gary Priestley. I appreciate it. It must look hysterical from Australia, what's going on over here. I just have to say, and you too, Liam and Robsky. I can imagine that from England we look like it's a little bit crazy. But I'm sure politics is crazy everywhere. I mean, look what was just going on with the vote yesterday with New Zealand. In Australia politics is hot right now, and in England it always is something popping off. I mean, politics in general is just a clown show most of the time. We can find. It seems there are either representatives who want to do their jobs or who just want to score points. They usually both. I would say they're all in it to score points. And, yes, Shill, I agree. Everybody have a great afternoon. And I just saw that come over. Newt Gingrich, who was a speaker at one time and very, very high up in the Republican Party, he's calling for Gates to be expelled for causing all this drama and stopping the process and segregating the party. He definitely wants some repercussions. However it is, he's right the way things are written for him to do it. So. Yeah, it is. That's it. The only comment that you got to write with your phone. Okay, this is amazing and bizarre at the same time. Yes, it is. It's unprecedented and it's eye-opening to watch. In a way, it's a little confusing, and that's why I'm just trying to track it the best that we can. Yep. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for contributing to the conversation and for all the little bits that you send me and all of the questions. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day. I will be back tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to be on my channel. We are doing the challenge with Culture Cats, JL Warren, and Charlie Welch, and that will be to be determined on which channel. I will let you know. I'll put it on the community tab. I'll put a post on Twitter. Do what I can to let you all know where. But basically one of our channels. Watch both of Culture Cats' channels. It's either on his main channel, Culture Cats, and or Patrick the Great, but he's been outed. Like, he outed himself at the last one, so I'm just gonna call it like it is. Yes, it's him. The Englishman with the guitars and the funny take on stuff and a great sense of humor. That bald one, the Baldy Cats. Yes, Conspiracy Cats. Yep, it was him, Patrick the Great, all the time. Yeah, well, it's going to be on best comedy scene that is not from a comedy or a rom-com. In other words, it wasn't written to be funny, but it damn well was. And this is quite entertaining. I can't wait to do this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be back on Friday with more true crime and legal update about the Scientology lawsuits. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that going on too. Anyway, everybody, definitely have a good night. Thank you for entertaining with me. I love this intro outro. Thank you, Counter Talk. This one's exquisite. Sorry for the headache. Okay. But somebody had to come out here and talk about it. Okay. Bye, guys.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Justice requires us to remember when any citizen denies his fellow saying his color, not mine, or his beliefs are strange and different. In that moment, he betrays America.
Be nice and patient and continue to pray. In 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out.
I believe that truth is the glue that holds government together. Not only our government, but civilization itself.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened.
America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in high moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the face of the world.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Through much of the last century, America's faith in freedom and democracy was a rock in a raging sea.
Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America.